Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to my studio. In today's lesson, we're going to be painting these beautiful roses that I picked up at Trader Joe's. And I just wanted you to meet my dog, Rose. Say hello, Rose. She's looking at the window, but this is Rose. She's about almost 3 years old in May, and she is my she is, what would I call her? My art mascot. She's my cheerleader here in the studio, and she's cheering all of you on today to paint roses. And so, yeah, she's yawning as we speak here. She's already bored with my lesson. Anyhow, I look forward to teaching you, and let's just get into it. So I'm just gonna start off painting these loose and lively roses here, using a little wash of some ultramarine blue and a little transparent brown oxide. And I want to just get in sort of a rough in what I want to see here as far as, you know, where the roses are going to go. Really want this to be a loose and lively painting. So I'm going to make sure I get those 3 roses in there, and this one here in the back, but these 2 for sure I want to emphasize. And then you just kind of sketch in what you want to see, and I'll put in part of that vase because I really love that turquoise in there. And once you get that going, just get some, I'm just using some water and some ultramarine blue and some transparent brown oxide, and I'm just gonna, I want to just kind of gray in a bit of that background just to have a contrast for those pink flowers to work with. And I kind of like that it's a transparent layer. I don't want to add any white yet. The minute you add white, then all your colors are going to start to lose their vibrancy. So even if you get a little, like I just did, if you get a little too much blue, just go in with a little more of the brown oxide and just sort of blend it in there. Doesn't need to be perfect. Gonna leave that, and I'll show you how to mix the turquoise. If you don't have, you know, like a phthalo turquoise blue, you can just make your own. I've painted many vases like with this color, so my students know I used to do that a lot. But everyone's always curious about painting kind of a transparent vase. So for the vase, I'm going to do a wash of, I've got, let me just move this water. I've got my Viridian green and some cerulean blue. I'm going to mix a little bit of that, and I'll just do the same. I'll just add some water, and I'm just going to pop that color in there just to get a nice thin transparent layer. And I like, you know, putting it directly onto the white canvas so that you can see through to it. And you can even, if you want to, you can, you know, put in a little bit of that, wipe away a little so you get that, a bit of that shine. Okay, so got my paintbrush in my in my pile of paint. That's always fun. And I need a giant bucket for this size of painting to put my paint in. Okay, now for the roses. What I'm going to do quickly is just dry. I want to keep my palette clean for the pinks, so I'm just going to quickly wipe this off. So one of the tips I have for you is to keep your palette try to keep it as clean as you can. And with acrylic, try to keep your water clean. So if it gets too muddy, you can always go and clean your water. And so I'm gonna just do a layer of, I've got out some transparent yellow oxide, and I'll add a little quinacridone red to it, so I have a nice sort of warm, you know, color for the rose. And I love that these roses have some real light pale pink, and then the tips are sort of this darker red. So I'm just gonna block in kind of where that darker part of the rose is, and then I'll use a bit more of the transparent yellow mix for the lower parts of the rose where it's a little lighter, pale pinky, and there's some greens. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. And I'm just using some water to get the paint to flow. I like to kind of distribute some of that color around in the early stages of my painting. So later on, you know, you start to get sometimes a little tight as you go, and you want to, you know, have some happy accidents later on. It's good to sort of, while you're in this stage of the painting, to kind of put a few little hints of that pink in, like the vase, and, you know, kind of put it all, you can put it around a bit, mix it around. And now I want to kind of look at some of these, just the composition a little, so I'm just gonna, I want this one to kind of go off the edge. And when you're painting larger like this, it's harder to be as picky about, you know, the exact, you know, shapes and everything. I'm just sort of trying to, it's just going to be sort of an abstract painting of roses, more trying to break out this year with more what I want to paint and see in my own paintings. It's just more like of the kind of idea that, okay, that's a rose, but it's not like a photograph, you know. It's kind of the idea. And okay, so now I'm going to switch brushes. Okay, so before I start with applying the loose paint, so we're gonna use, you know, a lot of paint when we start to, you know, really get going here. I'm getting a puddle of this titanium white and some of this quinacridone red. So I would recommend, when you start painting loose like this, I like working on an open tray for this, because I need to get the paint, you know, I need to get it off the palette and onto my, you know, my little spatula tool that I'm gonna show you. been sort of trying to practice this and get better at it so I could, you know, teach you more how to do it. You know, I don't want to be trying to show you something that I'm not really great at myself. So I've been working at it, and some of you saw my sunflowers that I've been working on. I'll show you in a sec after I mix up some more of this paint. So here's a few piles of this paint, and I'm going to show you, I've been using this catalyst tool. I also have this one, which I've never used. These are from Princeton. And right now, I was at Michael's, and I don't know if they're getting rid of them just when I start to get interested in them. I saw they were clearing them out, so I don't know if they're coming with new ones. But I've been using these to apply the paint. I also have a few, they make smaller ones too. Here's another Princeton brush, and it's also a spatula as well. So we can try it with all different tools. So the main thing though, I want to start by really focusing on, I want to get that center in there a little darker before I start. So let me just get a little bit of that transparent brown oxide and some quinacridone red, and I'm looking at this center here, and I really want to just sort of put in a little bit of that shape before I start adding the real loose brush stroke. So I'm sort of, you know, it's like, you know, tightening things up before I go loose. So this is obviously your star player there in the bouquet, and so you kind of want to show that one off. So I'm just gonna kind of quickly kind of sketch where I want these main kind of petals to flop, and then and I don't usually plan this much, but I feel like because I'm doing it, you know, on a video, you might maybe overthink a little bit. So let me just try. Okay, I've been trying this one here, but I'm looking at this kind of square edge here, and so maybe this tool would work better. And obviously I'm going to show you with your palette knife. So we'll experiment with a few tools. So I've got some quinacridone red and just some titanium white, and I'll work at putting a few of those center petals down. And this really, you know, this style is really super loose. So okay, so I'm gonna go around, and I'm using sort of, if you look at this, there's like a light pink and a darker pink. I'm gonna use the darker pink first to sort of block in some of these petals. And you know, as you can see, you kind of have to, you know, you really are forced to loosen up here with the brush strokes. And gonna just keep, you know, adding some, and you don't have to do the whole thing with the same tool, so we can, you know, loosen up all kinds of ways. But I really think you have to kind of find out what works really well for you. I've really enjoyed playing with these new tools because I want to paint really big, lively paintings for a local coffee shop, and I want to kind of break out of my own mold a little. So I'm adding a bit of yellow, and I'll add a little sap green to this petal here that's kind of got a little bit more of that greeny yellow color. And you kind of have to just, you know, go with it. It's like, you know, you wouldn't expect it, but you make some really interesting brush strokes using these things. And you can put in some of the darker, you know, leaves with it too. So I can go in and bring in some sap green here and put in a few rosy leaves here. And looking at my reference photo and just sort of oopsies. I just blobbed a bunch of white on there, so that won't work. I'm gonna try, let's try this one out. So it's a little bit different because you have a square edge to work with. So I guess you could make, you know, your more square brush strokes with this one. And then I'm looking at this vase here. There's some dark green that comes into that. So I'll kind of just put a few marks in there. So I feel like I work better with this one, but now that we've tried that out, let's go and try another spatula, which I like is this one. And let's put in some of that lighter pink in there. Just sort of blend in. I'm gonna kind of make a mid-tone puddle here using kind of in between and sort of blend that in there. So you're painting but the paint goes on so quick and easy like this because you're not brushing the paint on. It's just kind of gliding along the surface, and it's really interesting. Put a bit more of a highlight on there on those ones. And if you're watching and you like this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. I also just did one on painting large and loose tulips the other day, so you can go and check that video out as well. And I have a Patreon channel where you can support me there and get loads and loads of other videos that I've uploaded over the years over there. So just sort of kind of working some of those highlights in there. And so now we've got that rose is looking pretty good. We can go and we can do the next rose over here, which I want to get in there. And don't forget to mist your paint. And so I'll go back to the catalyst tool, but I'll show you also how you can use add a tiny bit of that cerulean blue to that mix, just to get that kind of shadow color in there. And then there's sort of that kind of sap. I'm going to add a little bit of sap green to some of that pink. So you get sort of a little bit of the greeny white in there that you see. And I'm just mixing up a little more of that pink. Pink and white to get a little more of that kind of mid-tone range. And I'm using the spatula to mix it too now. Get a little bit of that. There's a white kind of stroke in there. I'll just get some more white and put in that. So you can see I'm getting some nice marks there with these, with the catalyst tool. I'm just looking at the petals over there. And you just sort of, once you get rolling with it, you can kind of start to add stuff, and then you can always go back to your brush too, and you don't have to be sold on a one road. So I can go in and maybe put in some, blend it a little, or add a little bit of that dark center in there. I want to add a little more quinacridone, and just sort of show you I don't know how much you can see of my palette, but you just get a little transparent brown oxide there, and get in some of these darker marks. And you can use your brush and go in and put a few, darker spots in your other rows too. You don't have to be stuck with one tool, you can mix it up a little. I just really like how loose those are. I would never be able to get that feel with just a paintbrush, so it causes you to really loosen up. So I might get a little bit of the, you know, that one up there, I'm gonna add a little bit of that ultramarine blue just to kind of get some of the, it's more of a distant rose. Put in a bit of that, make that pink more of a purpley pink so that it's a little bit less, you know, in the foreground here. And put a little bit of that in this one here. And it's a lot of fun to do. And now I'll show you, you can take your palette knife and we'll try the effects of just using, you know, the palette knife to put in some, you know, some of those marks for that rose. And the further the flower away, the less detail I want to, you know, put on there. So I'll just look at some of those kind of angles and everything, and I'll just sort of, you know, use a lot more white and a little bit of that transparent yellow oxide, and just get some of that. In there. And then down in this petal back here, it has that kind of more of that green tone to it. So I'm going to add a little sap to it. And maybe a little of that cad yellow medium. And just mix up something a little more. Just gotta be at the value, has to be a little bit darker. So I'm gonna add a little more green, just a little more to my mix here. Okay, now that's a bit better. It's a little darker. Add a little bit more, just a little more green to that, so it's a little more subdued and kind of the way it looks there. And mix a little bit for this rose down here. Gonna add some more highlights there. So now I've got some we've used a few different tools there. I'm going to go back to my spatula and just sort of put some more marks to show the top of that rose there. Same with over here, sort of. Okay, so now I want to go back in and get my brush, and first of all I gotta make sure I keep my paint wet here, and go back in with my brush, and I can, you know, add a few fine details, go in and put a few more bits of shadow using that brown oxide and quinacridone red mix to put a few shadows in there. Just kind of looking at those. And okay, so now we wanna get some action in the vase. So I'm gonna get my, this is a regular brush, the Filbert Princeton Summit. And I don't usually use Filberts, but for this I don't really care. I just want to get a few marks of some of those stems. So I'll put a few in there like that, and just infer some, you know, some green in there, like just very subtle, and then get a little bit of that. There's a kind of a highlight on there, so I'll mix a little cad yellow, medium, and white, and some Viridian to get sort of a cool green. And I'm just going to put a bit of a highlight on that. There's some real bright highlights in there. Keep that highlight, you know, going across. And then while I have that on my brush, I can add a little, make a kind of nice bright green here using some Viridian, and I've got some sap in there and some cad yellow medium. And I can do a little work on the stems here. Get that stem in there, and you can put in some of the different shades of green, and just sort of follow along with what you see. And you can go and get your palette knife even and put a few real nice thick green accents in there. And then I want to make a nice highlight for the vase, so I'm going to get some of that original color we used for the vase, some of that cerulean blue and the Viridian green, and mix up that sort of homemade turquoise blue color that we have going here. And I want to look at that and just sort of start a highlight there for that. Put your first mark down and then go add some more white to it. And then you can put your second mark down and then even just get some pure white. And then you've got your highlight there. You can put a few marks, like I'll take a bit more of that and kind of mix up another puddle, and you could just sort of put a bit of that glass coming around there like that, just to put some of that light on the other side of the vase. You don't have to blend it, but you could always blend it too. Just take your brush and just sort of get a bit of that color and kind of make it look like there's that glass kind of coming around there. So you got some nice thick paint on there, and it's very loose and abstract looking. So now we're just gonna figure out kind of some highlights and what to put in the background. Roses kind of figured out. I'm gonna go and I've got out some of this gray, like right out of the tube. I'm gonna mix it in with some of this pink, and I am just going to make a light kind of gray. I'll add a bit of blue in there. I want to just add something to make the vase and the you know, just some of it stand out a bit. You don't need to, you know, do the whole background because some of the thin paint with the thick paint looks really good. So you kind of pick and choose. So I'll mix some of that up. And you could start by putting some of that in with your palette knife and get some of the darker gray in there. And once you get a bit of that in there, you can always put a bit of pink in there just to liven it up. And you know, you just kind of play around. I'm just doing this. This is like a super, you know, quick demo for a large, this is quite a large painting that I'm just sort of doing really quick, but you get the idea so that you can kind of, you know, do your own kind of thing with it and do a better, you know, a better job because you can take your time. So I'm just sort of having fun with it though, but it definitely is hard to make a nice painting while you're trying to kind of hurry through it a bit. So then you can go get a large brush and sort of blend some of those marks that you make just to keep it nice and loose. But I kind of like that real rough, loose background for how kind of rough the painting is. And I want to get a little more of that darker gray. And those are really handy grays to have for these large paintings that if you're going to try some of these bigger canvases, just go to Michael's and get the value packs. You can get these in 5 packs, believe it or not, from Michael's. And that's the way to go, because you're not risking a lot of money, wasting a lot if you don't like your painting. You can just kind of give it away after, or, you know, something. And so I'm just putting some of that color, I'll mix it up here, just to kind of stick with that abstract kind of look. Put some of that, you know, blue in the shadow there. But it's a real quick way to get a large painting done using these tools. And I want to just get a little bit more of a highlight on the rose petal. Just have fun with it, you know, it's so different, so it's gonna take time to get used to, but I think in the end, being able to paint something, you know, really expressive and lively, I feel like this year is my year to sort of learn that. I've got a really big sunflower painting I'm working on, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to kind of master the art of not really caring about having it turn out perfect, you know, just sort of kind of more decorative and kind of a little more just lively. So I think what you could do a lot to, you know, go in and sort of start adding a little more detail. So, but I don't want to overdo it for the video, but I could go in with a brush even and just sort of, you know, pick out a few details here and there of some petals, you know, and you could use your palette knife again and just now go back, because at first you get kind of excited, and then you can go back and then really take a look at some of the things you want to kind of bring out here and there. Add a few of those petals and some of those highlights. And I'll put a little bit of the pink like I usually do. I'll put some little bits of pink on some of the petals and in the background, just to kind of make it more exciting. And then I'll get, I always like to go in with a real dark color, so I'm just using more of the background mix, the ultramarine blue and the brown oxide, and just put a few darker marks in there just to really kind of pop some of that color out of it again. Okay, so I think that's sort of my first or second attempt rather of my large and loose flowers with the palette knife and everything. And so I hope you enjoyed that lesson. Well, hello again everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to my channel. Don't forget to share it with a friend and leave me a comment below if you enjoy the video. Let me know if you tried any of these techniques out and how they're working for you. So anyhow, hope you have a good time, and don't overthink it, just paint.